So hello guys, CMD here with a new video, and it's been quite a while since I made one of these videos that are kind of just straight up talking, filming something on my desk, and that's because a little bit of things have changed, and what this video is pretty much is just going to be a rant on in which direction I want to take the channel, what kind of content I'm going to make in the future. I'm going to show you some things that I'm currently playing with, trying out. So yeah, this is basically it. And pretty much what the next piece of content for this channel is going to be is probably going to center around this. This is a GTX 580, and yes, it's old. It's in fact 9 years old, or I think in 2 days or something like that it's going to be exactly 9 years old. And yeah, this is an ancient graphics card based on the Fermi architecture. It's in fact that old that NVIDIA put a integrated heat spreader over the GPU, so it looks like a CPU. And you might ask, you might ask yourself, what am I going to do with a GTX 580? And the thing that I'm going to do with it is pretty much I want to get into hard modding. So what I've done in the past is I took a GPU, I overclocked it in MSI Afterburner, ran some benchmarks, and showed you the results. And now things are going to change a little bit. I'm still going to just overclock this like normal, and then I'm going to get into physically modifying the card, physically modding it, making it better at overclocking basically. And yeah, that's why I chose a 580 and not a newer card, because well, I'm probably going to break it. Let's say it how it is. I never hard modded the card before, and yeah, I'm not really confident that my first attempt at hard modding a card is going to be successful, which is why I use this insanely old card, which cost me only 40 euros, by the way, so it's dirt cheap. So nobody's going to be really sad if it breaks. Like 40 euros, that's like half a driving session, and if I can at least learn something from breaking it, I think it's worth its money. So yeah, this is the GTX 580. It's actually a pretty custom card. So this is obviously not the blower style standard GPU. It even has a non-standard PCB. It even has this nice capacitor on the back. I actually forgot how these are called, but they're basically the most expensive, best kind of capacitor that have really good frequency response around. Yeah, they have really good response over the whole frequency range basically, whereas normally you would need all these different kinds of capacitors that are around the big one. Like each size of capacitor is good for a different frequency, and then this one big one is just good for pretty much every frequency. So yeah, and content going forward will probably be centered around this card. But I can't tell you how consistently I will make videos about it, because the things I'm going to do with it are based on the knowledge that I'm acquiring while being at university. So I'm at a university now, and yeah, the thing that I'm studying has to do a lot with electrical circuits. So yeah, this is pretty much homework for me. This is pretty much practice. And yeah, so to mod the card, I have to of course first learn how to do the things. Like, I know the basics in theory, but I actually never really physically modified something, so I will probably need some time before I can actually take a soldering iron and do weird things to the card, mod the core voltage, add some capacitors and whatnot. But what I can do before is just overclock it as usual and maybe try a bit of exotic cooling solution, because this is a Fermi card. And if you know what Fermi is, you probably heard of the GTX 480. And the GTX 480 is also dubbed the GTX Flamethrower because, well, it is. You can literally cook something on this card, and this the 580 is based on the exact same architecture, just that it has a lot more cores. Like the 480 has 384 cores and this is 512. So this is a much bigger, much better GTX 480. So this card will probably run as hot as it gets. Maybe even hotter than an RTX 2080 Ti. So yeah. Which is also why this card is a triple slot design. Like and these two fans on here, these are just 92mm case fans. Like these are just straight up fans you would put in a case. And I get really loud. This is my new loudest card. Still from Asus though. So they keep the crown of having the loudest card in my collection. So yeah, so that was a lot of talking about this GTX 580. That is basically my new plaything now. But that's not everything that I have planned for the future of the channel, because I also have another video in its finalization phase right now, which is part 2 of the Zoros Alpha PC showcase. And this video is probably going up before that one, but that video will probably be the next one from this video on. So the reason why I make a part 2 is basically, while in part 1 I kind of told you what the whole idea of the Zoros Alpha is and what components are in there, and I never really got into reviewing the components, so to say. So I never really said how good they are, what they're capable of, what are some of the major components are, or how good they are at overclocking or something. And that's what I do in part 2. I go into which MOSFETs are used on the graphics card and motherboard and so on. It's going to be like a 12-minute video, I think. So it's going to be longer than usual, which is also why I took such a long time to make it. Yeah, but that video is coming. There's also going to be a part 3, which is mostly just going to be benchmarks. And yeah, so that is coming. And as you might already see, I'm going to split content into 2 different kinds of videos. So the first kind of video will be just this. I take my camera and I make a top-down view of my desk, and I take something like a graphics card, play around with it, and do this pretty much unscripted with not really that much editing. And then there's going to be the second kind of video, which is like the Zoros Alpha review video, which is heavily edited, which is scripted, which is highly polished, using a lot of editing, and which is pretty much the main focus for quality content that I want to make. But actually I like hard modding graphics cards, overclocking stuff, that's actually the thing that I like to do most. So there's going to be these 2 kinds of content. And in different news, this is not the only graphics card that's going to be added to my collection. This is just like my crash dummy, because as I've already said, I will hard mod it. And I will probably break it. So when I inevitably break it, I will need a second card that I can then actually mod without it breaking, because I hopefully learn enough from this card to not break the second. And apart from this card, there are actually 2 more cards coming my way. Actually, there's 1 card coming my way, the second one is already here. And this one is not actually going to be modded. At least I don't plan on modding it, because this is a 980 Ti. And a 980 Ti is basically a more power-hungry 1070 with 2 gigs less VRAM. And this is going in the server, basically. It's replacing the RX 570. I'm planning on using this long term in the server, and so I'm not going to immediately mod this one. Maybe a few months down the line, when I'm comfortable with modding cards, I will also mod this one, because I kind of already tested it a bit, and it does overclock quite a bit. It is a heavily custom PCB, also from ASUS. So this is their Strix cooler, basically. Funny thing, it uses the same fans that they use on 20 series cards. So this is a ASUS Strix GTX 980 Ti. The PCB is very impressive from what I can say. I will also do teardown videos of these. This card is like, just from how much extra thickness there is to this PCB, just tells you how substantial this PCB is. And so this is probably going long term into the server, and it overclocks pretty good from what I've tested. I haven't, I ran it for an hour in the server, ran some benchmarks, some stability tests, and it is. Except maybe my 2080 Ti, it is easily the most powerful PCB that I own. It has a what looks like a 12-phase V-core. I can't say if it's doubled. I don't see any doublers on the board, so for now I think it's a real 12-phase, which is better, not that much better, but better than the big 8-phase that my 2080 Ti has. So this is a very, very powerful PCB, and this card is going to be like a just like a new 24/7 card. I will of course overclock it. I will do a teardown video, but I don't really plan on hard modding it a lot. So that brings us to the third card. The third card, which is going to be used for the same as this one, which is going to be modded, is a straight up simple reference PCB GTX 780. So originally I actually wanted to go with a blower cooler, just because I never had a blower cooler in my hands, and I know they are bad, but I just want to have one. Sadly I couldn't get one, so it's going to be a Zoltax cooler on there, but from what I can tell it's just a plain standard GTX 780 PCB. So technically the Windforce cooler from my 780 Ti should fit on it. So that might be a video idea, because from what I know the Gigabyte cooler was a lot more powerful than the other coolers, at least the ones that were common in the EU, like the MSI and Zoltac cooler. But I'm gonna test that. Like the only basis on this claim is that I saw on the internet people saying that the Gigabyte cooler was the best. So yeah, we're going to see that. And that's pretty much already everything that I really wanted to say. So from now on it's just going to be some rambling about this card mainly. because this card is really interesting in some ways. Like, not just that it's almost exactly 9 years old, but also that it's a lot more powerful than I thought. Like, it is a 580. It has a triple slot cooler. It is based on the Fermi architecture. It runs really, 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 really hard. And yeah, so I just, because I just wanted to have it to hard mod it, I never really thought about running it. But I did it anyways. It arrived, and I put it into the server, and I booted the server up, and yeah, it's not really impressive for today's standards. It has 1.5 gigabytes of VRAM, which is Samsung in this case, so Samsung's always nice, but I think that I have been rather unlucky because I can only add like 50 megahertz to the VRAM, and everything more than that crashes it. I'm not entirely sure if anything more than 50 megahertz will crash it, but the memory on this doesn't seem to be really good. But what is decently good on this card is the core, the GF110 GPU under there. And stock, it runs at 748 megahertz. And I managed to get it to 940, or also 945, but that won't run in all games. But 940 has been stable so far. I have been running this quite a bit longer than the 980 Ti, probably like 3 to 4 hours now. And yeah, from what I'm reading, GTX 580s were not always able to hit 900 megahertz, but there were also some that hit just 1 gigahertz, which this can't. At least it can't do unmodified. I think it will be able to do 1 gigahertz once I actually modify it. But for now it's 940 megahertz. And yeah. So another thing about this card is it's also a custom PCB. Like you can see, there's a pretty substantial cooler. It also has a back plate. It has this nice capacitor added to it, which is very, very custom. Like, there's only one other card that I know that uses these, which is the Gigabyte HD 7970 S Super Overclock, I think, which actually had 5 of these, I think, just soldered to the VRAM, which this one has 1 of those, and it's at the back of the GPU, which is actually what they are meant to be used for. But for some reason Gigabyte opted to just put them to the VRAM, which is probably because AMD told them to not modify the capacitors at the back of the GPU. So yeah, this PCB is custom, as I said. It's running a VRAM that is a lot more powerful than the stock. GTX 580 stock, I think, came with a 6-phase V-core. This one has a doubled 4-phase, I think. Like, there are 10 phases in total on this card, 2 of which are probably for memory, and then the other 8 are V-core, and then the other 8, there are 4, like basically 4 doubler looking chips connected to the lower 8 phases. So this probably runs a doubled 4-phase, which is pretty nice. Like, I like this PCB a lot. I actually like the design of the whole card a lot, because it is like the build quality is surprisingly good, and it's also really easy to build it. Like, you can remove the shroud to just have the fans and the bare heatsink, which can help with cooling. The whole cooler is just connected by these 4 screws, so the VRM has its own heatsink. So if I were to put a custom made water block on it, I can keep the VRM cooled just by pointing a fan at the PCB. So This card is very modding friendly from what I can see, and yeah. So what I haven't talked about yet is performance. So what do you expect of a 9-year-old card, especially from a 9-year-old card that's basically a bigger, better version of a card that's dubbed the Flamethrower? As it turns out, this card is a lot faster than I thought. Like I thought I will put it in and it will like barely run Minecraft. And actually it's a lot faster. So I run it on 1080p because the server has a 1080p display. And if you look up Tech Power Up, they list 1080p to be not a resolution to run this on. So we are already pushing the card beyond where it is, I guess, designed to run on. And even on 1080p, the performance is still very impressive. Like, I ran several games. I ran GTA 5, I ran Ark, I ran PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I ran Skyrim also, Borderlands 2, so newer, older games, games that are popular basically. And to my surprise, this card actually runs them at 1080p with, depending on the game, actually decent settings. Like GTA 5 runs on this card with high settings. And it runs on high settings with an average of 76 FPS, which is very impressive because I thought it just won't run GTA 5 or anything like that. But it does, and it's absolutely usable. So if you want to have a cheap card, just get a 580 because it can run GTA 5 absolutely fine. Same with the other games. In like the worst average FPS that I got, which was actually Skyrim, was 53 FPS, and Skyrim was running on maxed out, like ultra settings, everything. And like Ark Survival Evolved, which is known to be not that optimized, also ran with 53 to 55 FPS on high to epic settings. Like, this game was almost maxed out, and it runs on a 9-year-old GPU with actually usable frame rates. And at this point, I decided to make a Reddit post, actually, because I think 580s are not that fast, right? So what's wrong, or better, what's right with this card, so it is able to run these games? And I got mixed responses. I got basically people telling me, yeah, it's your CPU bottlenecked, which doesn't explain how fast this GPU is at all. And then I have people telling me that I'm just straight up lying and this card is not as fast. So, yeah. I am not lying, in fact. I think I will make a video, a video proof where I install the card, boot up the PC, then play the game, and show everyone that the FPS are actually that high. But yeah, so basically this card is actually faster than I thought, and now I'm actually kind of worried of breaking it. But I mean, it's still a 580. It does consume about as much power as my RTX 2080 Ti does. And I think there's no debate that the 2080 Ti is significantly faster than this. So yeah, and I mean, if I break it, I'd still have a 780. And even though the 780 is using the reference PCB, it's going to be faster than this. And it also has double the VRAM, because it just... I'm surprised how far 1.5 gigs of VRAM can bring you today, because while there obviously were signs that this card just doesn't have enough VRAM, like games like Destiny 2 just didn't run at all. So like 30 to 40 FPS on lowest settings. So yeah, that game you can't play on this card. And then games like GTA 5, which ran on decent frame rates, you had some weird moments where like a building was loading in very near to you because the VRAM is just that limited that it can't load the map that far out. But actually I saw the same behavior on my 780 Ti and the RX 570. And I still see it on the 2080 Ti sometimes, so I guess it's also kind of happening because of the software. It's just that on this card the effects are kind of more substantial, so probably the VRAM. But I mean, it's still usable. You can still absolutely play the game. It's just that buildings that are far away from you look basically like Minecraft boxes. But yeah, I think this was enough of incoherent rambling. We are 26 minutes, which is actually less than I thought. I thought this is going to be a 48-minute video. So yeah, basically content moving forward on the channel is going to be either these scripted, highly edited videos like the PC showcases, or they're going to be just like this video is. I take a camera, I take a graphics card, I do something to it, I talk about it, and maybe show you some results. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. So I have things planned for the channel. Things are going to happen. I can't tell you how soon they will happen. I can tell you that right after this I'm going to make the teardown video of this because I really like the PCB under there. Like I really like the card, and I really look forward to modding it. So anyways, yeah, I think this was enough of rambling now, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. I don't really know how to end this video, so I'm just gonna say bye bye.